Thank you so much. Thanks everyone. Thanks so much for coming. I know it's a slog to get out and do anything in the last few weeks of thesis. I'm here today to present my project, Junk Tectonics Feral Communities. This is going to be a bit of a test of my public speaking skills. So firstly I'm going to talk through the concept and then I'll show you my final drawings, and then I've got a few slides at the end on process. So, Junk Tectonics Feral Communities investigates extractive and exclusive systems of land use using landscape and built intervention to conduct a staged transformation of a golf course upon the arid lands of Mildura, subverting its focus to inclusivity, community and ecology. So what I proposed was a new clubhouse and some ancillary interventions, along with an overall ecological transformation related to the golf course. So the project began from my own emotional aversion to the number of golf courses along the Murray River. It seemed crazy to me that with this river that's unrecognisable from its pre-colonial state and in a deep ecological crisis following the implementation of large-scale built interventions which facilitate irrigation. I later found out that this irrigation system has not only established huge expanses of agricultural lands, but also provides the water for many of these golf courses to upkeep their green lawns. And I looked into it and they require a lot of water. So there's a total of 45 golf courses up the Murray River, and the black dots on the map represent golf courses elsewhere. So the project critiques its site, the golf course and its broader context, via two global theoretical concepts which are ideologically linked. These concepts were extraction as a governing way of valuing attributes of regional space, and secondly in feminist ecology, which I used as a lens to understand the golf course as a space which transforms a large sum of land under values that exclude select groups of human and more than human, showing the link between social and ecological oppression via transformative global forces. I saw the golf course as being of the Capitalocene, which was a term coined by Donna Haraway to foreground the changed geological landscape of the Anthropocene at the hands of capitalism, linking social and environmental oppressions in the current moment. So Mildura became kind of like a perfect grounds for testing all of this thinking, with its establishment on a story of large-scale irrigation and the transformation of red-soiled, arid lands into fruitful agricultural plains and lush green golf courses. And as you can see, there's 3 on the map, just in Mildura. So the extractive hierarchy became clear, with aspects of landscape being extracted, diminished or favoured. I also identified byproducts of the extractive hierarchy, which are discarded by the system, which are feral ecologies and junk. So this is the existing condition mapped out with the golf course. The golf course becomes a space catering recreation to narrow social groups, whilst excluding large expanses of land from communities and ecologies. It sucks up large sums of water, implements unreconstructed paternalistic social and gender hierarchies, and it does this through things like dress codes, members' privileges, men and women's days, and gendered teeing off points. So in order to translate these cross-disciplinary concepts into an architectural response, I enacted my own design terminology, which would allow me to absorb some of this conceptual thinking into a physical form. So this was like one of the most difficult parts of the project. It's really hard to translate like these quite large sweeping theoretical concepts into an architectural response. So I just wanted to use really clear devices to allow me to do that. So I defined junk tectonics as that which is usually useless or discarded becomes a fundamental architectural component, subverting the hierarchical outcomes of extractive processes. The second main device that I used was composition. It allowed the intention of each stage to become kind of clear and allowed architectural intervention to react to existing and to introduce a new program along a methodology of regeneration and inclusion with focus on ecologies and communities. So the stage 1's composition was the slice into the existing condition. Then stage 2 was subvert the function of the grid and its structure. Stage 3 was blur spatial boundaries and programmatic rules. So now looking at the outcome project. So a big part of it was the staging that I had to express in all the drawings. So in this isometric view, this is stage 1, which still has the existing golf course clubhouse. So it slices into the landscape and the existing building, exposing social and ecological hierarchies, inviting new users and use, and collecting objects and junk to facilitate the future project. Stage 2 uses gridded and infrastructural geometries, subverting their function for the thriving of ecologies, and implementing water filtration channels and a plant nursery in the ruins of the existing condition. Finally, at stage 3, I'm forming the new clubhouse, which is where we're really upping the amount of community use and people in the space. It redefines the existing micro-leisure program by blurring spatial and environmental conditions, social binaries, and expressing the entanglements of the Capitalocene. So looking at the overall site, I'm mainly responding architecturally at the site of the clubhouse, but it does spread site-wide in terms of an ecological response. So the entanglements of humans, ecologies, and junk take root upon the golf course. Transformative programs are proposed via the slicing of a walking journey through the landscape, the reframing of sport within aridity, and the rebirth of ecologies within a carved-up golf course. The introduction of a new clubhouse is free from its past oppressive overlays. So the idea is that these reforming interventions overturn the site from a single type of space into a space favouring, an experimental space favouring multiple users. So looking at the plan, you can see the compositional devices come to fruition. First in the slice, which I kind of subtly colour-coded as well. The slice brings new function and community investment in the space and facilitates junk preparation and collection. Then in a subversion of existing conditions with refocus on ecologies, facilitating the replanting of the site, that's stage 2. And then finally in the blur building, I'm emphasising community use and introducing programs like a community living room, a BYO bar, and a feral garden cinema. The idea is that this implements access, user control, and program which exists outside of profits and the staff-patron relationships that brings. So I did a really long narrative section which allowed me to show all the important parts of the project strung together and through time. Firstly, this is back on stage 1. Where the golf course closes to become a public park and program is sliced into the existing building. So the junk collection space you can see here is slicing through the existing trophy room, and it's got gabion walls that are filled with trophies and domestic objects, which frame the junk collection nets on the side walls. So this reconstructs the hierarchies of importance, and a room that was once dedicated to display and vision becomes a functioning workspace which facilitates the upkeep of the future condition of the building. So this is the heat shelter and native grassland oval, where the slice begins to juxtapose the introduced grasses of the golf course against the new native grasses. And irrigation and seasonal stasis is juxtaposed against movement and dryness. Then this is the plant nursery and stage 2, where the existing clubhouse has now been demolished and the golf course is being carved up and reseeded. The architectural forms subvert function of mechanical geometries, and junk tectonics are embedded into the mechanics of the space. The roofs facilitate the collection of light and water with form in line with the growth stages of plants, and recycled brick channels collect and filter both storm and grey water for the watering of plants. So this is a detail of that space where you can see colour and tactility of the junk creating a real sense of playfulness. There's coloured golf balls dotting through recycled concrete and terrazzo style panels, bottle top rain chains hanging from the roof, feral ecologies are frozen in hanging glass lights, and the static objects of golf become more dynamic as they age within gabion walls. So this is the bird tower which sits adjacent to the landfill site. So as part of stage 2, bird towers are implemented along the walking journey of the site, encouraging the viewing and appreciation of feral ecologies and landscapes. Formal cues from the massaging of Junk Tectonics with local water tower forms, and both the lift and the stairway make a staged, slow journey upward with viewing distances gradually increasing to reach the landfill site. So now we're at stage 3, where the new clubhouse is built and the landfill is being seeded. So the landscapes, the adjacent landscapes are being merged into their environmental context. The golf course is now transformed into a thriving site for ecologies, which still bears the traces of forms of its past life. It's not rewilded into its pre-colonial form, but is a hybrid of the Capitalocene. So I didn't want to completely erase the context that it had existed. I wanted it to become this hybridized site. In the Blur building, the focus on community is reinvigorated on site as the new clubhouse is built and the restriction of access disintegrates. The form of the Blur building expresses itself through adaptability, inclusivity, and the layering of blurred skins within which communities, ecologies, and junk are able to thrive. And this is a detail of that space, which you can see is kind of communicating the messiness and the entanglement. The translucent layers of PVC embedded in net, pressed aluminium perforated doors, plastic bag curtains, and plastic bottle gabion create blurry boundaries to the space and provide opportunity for the entanglements of ecologies, communities, and junk in an extended shaded threshold. So this is a render of that space. I'm going to talk about the Junk Tectonics a little bit more later, but you can kind of see them coming to life in this image. They integrate with anthropogenic entanglement in their site. The plastic gabion affects a layered translucency and sparkling reflection in the sun and rain, and plastic bag curtains inflate in the wind. The intervention of stage 3 brings the metamorphosis of the Mildura Golf Club, where extractive hierarchies are overthrown in favour of feral and native ecologies, wide community groups, and discarded objects. So finally, the site has become an entangled landscape, the multiplicities of its spaces encouraging symbiotic relationships rather than extractive ones. Okay, so that is the main part of the drawings from my final project, and I'll kind of semi-quickly run through the process and then we can talk a little bit more about it at the end. So at the very beginning I established some really strong texts that I was really passionate about and that I think positioned the project in this kind of agent of change ideology, and they were quite interdisciplinary, so threading them together was really difficult, but I think quite enriched the project quite a lot. I was in lockdown. It was actually at the end of 2021, so I couldn't go to site. So I found myself really often walking along the Merry Creek and just spotting things along the way that related to the site, and that helped me kind of think through a lot of problems and connected me to the site in a weird way. I went through so many iterations. It took me a really long time to reach the eventual plan, and especially the nursery section. I failed quite a few times and had to kind of like go back to the start, which was really difficult, but it just kind of, at the end of it all, like to me, spoke to the complexity of like what I was trying to work through. Architectural precedents I mainly used to understand materiality and structure. I leaned a bit more on non-architectural precedents to give me some theoretical guidance and to also push a bit more thinking at a detail scale. And here are the prototypes that I made up of the Junk Tectonics. And I think because of the nature of the project, I wanted to be really resourceful with the way that I made these. So with the plastic bottle Gabion, I put a box at the bottom of my apartment building and asked for people to donate their plastic bottles. And I made a couple of prototypes that you can see on the left there. And then the plastic bags, I dug them out the back of the cupboard and tried a few ways to seal them together. So I originally was sewing them together, and then I found it was much more sturdy to iron them along the seam, and then they become this kind of like patchwork of weird Coles and Woolworths patterns. So I really enjoyed just kind of thinking up what I could do with the project. And this is the golf ball terrazzo. So I stumbled across this image that showed what golf balls look like when you slice them in half. And I ended up like trying to calculate how many golf balls I thought would be on the site, and then kind of designing these terrazzo blocks, which are both interior and exterior. And that's the end, that's where I'll leave it.